The war had ended, but the scars stayed. John Carter walked through the dust-covered streets of Calderon 4. His boots leaving prints in the blood-stained sand. He didn't expect thanks. He didn't expect medals. He just wanted to go home and forget the screams, the fire, the explosions. But today, something strange happened. He was called to the governor's mansion, a place built high above the rest of the colony, shining like a pearl in a sea of ruin. Soldiers in polished armor stood on both sides of the entrance, silent and cold. Inside, the governor, a fat man with lazy eyes, smiled like he knew a secret. "You've served the Empire well," he said, pouring himself a drink, "and as thanks you will receive a gift." John raised an eyebrow. "I don't need a gift, oh, but you'll want this one," the governor said, clapping twice. 2 guards entered, dragging something behind them. It was a girl. No, not just a girl, an alien girl. Her skin was pale silver, her arms thin, her ankles chained. She didn't fight, didn't speak, just looked up with wide golden eyes that shimmered like dying stars. Her lips were cracked, her dress torn, and her face carried no hope, only fear. John's stomach turned. "What the hell is this?" "She's yours now," the governor said, sipping his drink, "a rare prize from the war front. Strong breed, quiet, obedient. I didn't fight for this," John growled. "Take her or leave her," the governor said. "But if you leave her, she goes back to the pens." The girl's head shot up at that word. "No," she whispered, her voice dry like broken glass. "Please, not the pens." For a second, John didn't move. His hands clenched into fists. He didn't come here to play hero again. Not after all the blood he'd spilled. But then she looked at him. Not like a slave. Not like a thing, but like someone begging for her life. He sighed, unchained her. The guards hesitated, but the governor nodded. "Your responsibility now." The journey back to his small cabin outside the city was silent. The girl sat in the back seat, hugging herself. She didn't ask questions, didn't complain, not. Even when the vehicle shook on the bumpy roads, when they arrived, John opened the door and waited. She didn't move. "You're free to come out," he said. She stepped out slowly, her bare feet touching the ground like it would bite her. She looked around, confused, like she had never seen open space before. "This isn't much," John muttered, unlocking the front door, "but it's safer than whatever they gave you." Before the cabin was small, 1 bedroom, a small kitchen, some old furniture. He pointed to a couch. "You can sit," but she didn't. Instead, she dropped to the floor, curled up in the corner, and stared at the wall like a dog waiting to be kicked. John watched her, something burning in his chest. "What's your name?" No answer. He tried again. "Do you want food?" Still nothing. He opened a food pack and left it on the floor next to her. She sniffed it carefully, then used her fingers to pick it up. Eating like she hadn't eaten in days. "You can use the table," he said gently. "You don't have to eat on the ground." She didn't look at him that night. John couldn't sleep. He kept hearing the soft sounds of her breathing from the next room, the sound of metal when she shifted, even though the chains were gone the next morning. She was still there, curled up in the same spot, her eyes open but blank. John sat on the edge of the couch, sipping bitter coffee. "You could have run," he said quietly. "No chains on you now, no locks on the door." Finally, she looked at him. "I have nowhere to go," she said. John stared at her for a long time. Her voice wasn't angry, wasn't cold. It was tired. Like someone who had lost too many battles to fight anymore. "What did they call you?" he asked. "They didn't," she replied. "I was number 43 in the pens." He winced. Well, that won't work, he thought for a moment. "How about Rilla?" Her eyes blinked slowly. Then, just barely, she nodded. John stood up and tossed her a blanket. "Rest, Rilla. You're not a number anymore." She clutched the blanket like it was gold. As John turned away, he heard her whisper again, "If you had given me back, I'd be dead by morning." He didn't reply. But inside he knew something had already changed. Not for her, for him. Asterisk. She didn't speak for 3 days. She didn't sleep in the bed John gave her, or sit on the chair, or even ask for anything. She just stayed in the corner of the room, curled up, eyes wide open, like a creature waiting for pain. John tried not to look. But every time he passed, she flinched. He noticed her staring at small things, the flickering light bulb, the running water in the sink, the wind through the open window. It was like everything was new to her, like she hadn't seen the sky in years the first night. He left a plate of warm food on the table. He watched from the other room, pretending to read. An old book. Rilla crawled to the table, eyes darting left and right. But instead of sitting, she dropped to her knees, picked up the food with her hands, and began eating off the floor. John felt something twist in his chest. She wasn't just afraid. She was trained to be less than human, like an animal. "You don't have to do that," he said quietly, walking into the room. She froze, crumbs on her lips, body shaking. "You can eat from the plate," he added, trying not to sound harsh. She nodded quickly but didn't move. He could tell she didn't believe him yet. That night, he couldn't sleep again. The sound of her breathing from the other room was soft, but constant. It wasn't peaceful breathing. It was scared breathing, shallow and careful, like someone expecting to be punished in their sleep. On the fourth day, he found her cleaning the floor with a wet rag. Not because he asked, because she thought it was her job. "You don't have to do that either," he said. She didn't stop. "I want to," she whispered. "It keeps me from being taken back." "Taken back where?" She paused, then looked up slowly, the place with the noise. She said, "In the dark pipes." John said nothing. He didn't want to know yet. But he knew whatever the place was, it had broken her. He walked into the kitchen and returned with a spoon. "Let's start with this," he said, offering it to her. She looked at it like it was a trap. Then she reached out, slow, trembling fingers wrapping around the metal. "Thank you," she said so quietly. He barely heard. He smiled gently. "You don't need to thank me," but she kept whispering it, again and again, like it was the only word she remembered how to say. Later that night, he found her staring at her own reflection in the window. Glass, her fingers touched her face, as if she wasn't sure it was hers. "You don't know what you look like?" John asked from the couch. She turned slightly. "They never let us see." John nodded slowly, understanding too much. Rilla stepped closer to the window, touching the scars on her cheek. "Do I look ugly to humans?" John blinked. "No, not ugly," he said. "Just tired." Rilla smiled for the first time, but it wasn't happy. It was the kind of smile that came with pain behind it. Smile that said, "I don't believe you, but I wish I could." The next morning, something changed. John woke up and walked into the small kitchen, expecting silence, but Rilla was there, standing beside the stove. She had boiled water and poured it into 2 mugs. It wasn't tea, just water, but it was something. "I saw you drink this," she said softly. "It calms the body." John nodded, surprised. He took the mug, warm in his hand, and sat at the table for the first time. She didn't sit on the floor. She pulled out a chair and slowly sat down. Across from him. "Better," John said, sipping. She tilted her head. "Better." He smiled. "Yes, better." Then came the sound. One loud ping on the front door. John stood, heart tensing. He walked over, gun hidden behind the door frame, and opened it a crack. No one was there. Just a small package. No name, no address. Only a symbol burned into the top 3 silver claws in a circle. John's blood ran cold. He had seen that mark during the war. It belonged to the Vire Syndicate, the worst kind of slavers. He turned around and saw Rilla frozen, staring at the mark through the open door. Her lips trembled. "They found me." John closed the door and locked it tight. "Not while I'm here," he said. She looked at him like she wanted to believe it, but her eyes said otherwise. The chains were gone, but the fear still held her. And now, the hunters were coming. John didn't sleep that night. He sat by the window, blaster across his lap, eyes scanning the dark outside, but nothing came. No sounds, no footsteps, no more strange packages. Rilla stayed quiet, barely moved. She sat with her knees pulled to her chest, wrapped in the blanket he'd given her days ago. Her golden eyes didn't blink much, just watched the shadows like they could reach through the walls. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was heavy, full of fear. Neither wanted to speak. "You should get some rest," John finally said, his voice low. "I don't rest," she answered. "Why not?" "I don't dream good things." He wanted to ask more. But the way she said it stopped him cold. The next morning, the world looked calm. John walked the perimeter of his land, checked the traps, the fence, sensors, nothing triggered. Whoever had left the package were sending a message, not an attack. When he returned, he found Rilla standing at the sink watching water swirl down the drain. "You okay?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed at his holoscreen. "Can that connect to outside systems?" "Sometimes," he replied. "Why?" She hesitated, then walked over and pressed a few keys. Her fingers moved like someone who hadn't touched a screen in years but still remembered how. The screen flashed, then showed a strange alien symbol, like a flower with fire in the middle. "That's the crest of my family," she whispered. "I saw it once, when I was very small." John leaned forward. "You said you were taken? Were you born in a royal house?" "I don't know if it was royal," she said, "but there were guards, lights, gardens. And my mother sang to me in a language I forgot." She sat down, fingers clenched tight. "Then they came. In the night. They took the children. Burned the rest." John's fists clenched. "And they sold you to the pens." She nodded. "They called me 43. Beat me when I spoke my name." "What was it?" he asked gently. She looked up at him, her voice trembling. "Rilhora? Daughter of the Emberlight clan?" John repeated it softly. "Rilhora?" She nodded slowly, as if hearing it aloud brought pieces of herself back. Later that day, John contacted an old friend, Kel, a former intelligence officer. If anyone could confirm a name like Rilhora, it was him. Kel's voice came through, scratchy but clear. "John, you're supposed to be retired." "I am," John said. "But I need info on a name Rilhora of the Emberlight clan." There was a pause, then static. Then Kel's voice dropped low. "Where did you hear that name?" "Psst, long story," John replied. "What do you know?" Kel sighed. "She vanished during the Emberlight massacre, 20 years ago. Whole line thought to be dead. Some say it was a coup. Others think it was the syndicates wiping out noble bloodlines." John glanced at Rilla, who sat by the window tracing the symbol on the glass. "She's alive," John said, "but they're hunting her." Kel swore. "Then you need to move fast. John, if the syndicates know she survived, they won't stop. They already sent a warning." John replied, "I think they want her back. They won't just take her," Kel said. "They'll erase anyone who helped her." The call ended with a cold silence. John turned to Rilla. "You were right," he said. "You are someone important." She didn't smile. "Important people die faster," she said quietly. That evening, a message came through the airwaves, encrypted. But John cracked it easily. A bounty posting, high-level clearance, sealed under syndicate command. It had Rilla's face, taken from surveillance at the governor's mansion long. With one word. Retrieve. They weren't just hunting her. They were paying millions too. Bring her back, dead or alive. John leaned against the wall, heart pounding. He knew then this wasn't just about saving a girl. This was about war again. He walked into the room where she sat, watching the fire flicker. "They put a bounty on you," he said. She didn't look surprised. "They always do when something escapes." "I can protect you," he said. "But not alone." She stood, slowly meeting his eyes for the first time without fear. "You don't have to," she said. "I'm not as weak as I look." For a moment, the chains around her were invisible. For a moment, he saw what she might have been. A leader, not a prisoner. "Rilhora," he said again. She corrected him gently. "Just Rilhora now." He nodded. But in his heart, he knew the name Rilhora would shake the stars if it ever returned. Asterisk, the stars looked peaceful that night, but peace was a lie. John stared. At the bounty notice again, its words burned into his mind. Retrieve alien female, species classified. High-value escaped property underneath. A reward so large it could buy a small moon. And her face, Rilla's face, was everywhere now. He shut the screen, leaned back, and sighed. She sat across the room, silent, hands folded in her lap. She knew what was coming. He didn't have to say it. "They found you," he finally said. "I know," she whispered. "They always do." John stood up and began pacing. "I can take you off-world. Deep space. Maybe a mining colony, somewhere no one asks questions." She shook her head. They'll follow. They always follow. Not if I remove the tracker, he said suddenly. Her eyes widened. Tracker. John nodded. You didn't know? Her lips parted slowly, her breathing shallow. No, she said, but it makes sense. The pens. They took blood, skin samples, even injected us sometimes. John pulled up a scanner, same kind he used during the war. He waved it over. Her neck, her back, her arms. A faint beep came from her lower spine. There, he said. Something's lodged near your tailbone. She stood trembling. Can you get it out? He looked her in the eyes. Yes, he said, but it won't be pretty. They drove into the wastelands, where no drones flew and no eyes watched. In a hidden bunker John hadn't used in years, he set up his old field medkit. Rilla lay face down on a metal table, the blanket clenched between her teeth. No painkillers, John said. I'm sorry. They'll trace anything synthetic, I don't care, she whispered. Just get it out. He sliced carefully, hands steady, heart pounding. He found it small, black, like a spider, clinging to her spine. He pulled it free, dropped it into a lead-lined box, and sealed it. Rilla passed out when she woke up, hours later. Her skin was pale and her eyes unfocused, but there was something new in her face. Relief? It's out? She asked. John nodded. They can't track you anymore. She tried to sit up, but groaned in pain. He helped her gently, wrapping fresh bandages around her back. Why are you doing this? She asked, voice soft. You saved me too. He said, back at the cabin, when those hunters came, you didn't run. She looked down. I didn't want to leave you. His heart stopped for a second. He wasn't sure what that meant yet, but it mattered. 3 days passed. John moved her to an underground shelter clean. Hidden, full of supplies, Rilla started to smile more, speak more, even help cook. He showed her how to use a data pad, how to lock doors, how to fire a blaster. She was a fast learner, but the outside world wasn't sleeping. The bounty kept growing, and new names appeared on the wanted list. John's was now one of them, accomplice. Human male. Former soldier, dangerous Amita. He stared at the notice, then laughed quietly. They really think I'm dangerous, you are, Rilla said from the corner, sharpening a blade, and they should be scared. One night as they sat near a small fire, Rilla finally asked the question he feared. What happens now? John looked at her, unsure. They'll send more, he said. Stronger ones, with better tech. Then I'll fight, she said, her voice firm. I don't want you to fight, he said back. I want you to live, she touched his hand gently. I've been surviving my whole life, John, but with you. I started living. He didn't speak. His fingers closed around hers slowly. Then came the knock. 3 short taps. One long exact pattern from the war. John grabbed his blaster and opened the door an inch. A figure stepped inside, tall, wrapped in armor, helmet hiding their face. John Carter? The voice asked. Yes. The figure removed the helmet, revealing a scarred face with one eye. Kel, John muttered, surprised. I didn't think you'd come. I shouldn't have, Kel said. But I owed you. He glanced at Rilla. She really her? Yes, John said. Rilhara of Emberlight. Kel nodded slowly. Then you're both in deeper trouble than you know. He handed over a dataship, proof of who she is and what they've done to her kind. He said, it's enough to shake the syndicates. Maybe even burn them. John took it, feeling the weight of a galaxy-changing secret in his hand. And what happens if we go public? They'll try to silence you, Kel said. But if you survive, she won't just be a bounty anymore. She'll be a queen. Rilla's eyes widened. But John was already planning, not for war, but for justice. It began with a silent blink from the sensor on the wall. Just a soft blue flash when most people would miss, but John Carter didn't miss anything. They're here, he said quietly. Standing from the table, Rilla looked up, her spoon frozen. Halfway to her lips, she didn't ask who. She already knew. John walked to the cabinet, pulled out 2 old rifles, 1 energy pistol, and a bag of grenades. He tossed the pistol to Rilla. Keep this on you. Never let it go. She caught it. Eyes steady. How many? Too many, John said, checking the ammunition. Good, she replied. I won't miss. The sensors buzzed against this time-read movement on the East Ridge, 6 heat signatures, armored, fast. John's mind raced. Not just bounty hunters, professionals, probably syndicate-trained, ruthless and quiet. He turned off all interior lights and activated the bunker's defense shield. It would hold for a few minutes, maybe, but not against high-impact plasma rifles. Rilla stood beside him, calm. There was no fear in her now, only focus, her golden eyes glowed faintly in the dark. John caught himself staring. She looked like something ancient and powerful. Not a slave, not a victim, but a survivor ready to fight. The first shot came like thunder. A blaster beam slammed into the outer wall. Then another and another. The whole bunker shook, dust raining from the ceiling. They're trying to blow through the front. John said. He moved to the side tunnel and pointed. We flanked them. Rilla followed without a word. They emerged behind the attackers' 6 black-armored syndicate mercs. They moved like shadows, fast and deadly. John fired first, dropping one with a clean shot to the back. The others turned instantly, returning fire. Rilla moved faster than he'd ever seen. She dodged a beam by inches and leapt toward one of them. Her blade flashing, she drove it into the gap in the merc's armor. Twisting hard, another came at her, but John was there 2 shots to the chest. Gone. The fight was brutal and fast. John took a hit to the shoulder, burning pain ripping through him. Rilla screamed his name, then tore into the last attacker with both fury and grace. When it was over, 5 bodies lay still. John dropped to one knee. Blood soaking his sleeve, Rilla rushed to him, pressing cloth to the wound. You're okay, she said, over and over. You're going to be okay, John winced. You didn't run? I never would, she said. Her hands trembling. Not from you. Kell arrived 2 hours later. Drawn by the emergency beacon John had triggered, he walked into the blood-soaked scene and whistled low. You really threw a welcome party. John sat on a bench, arm bandaged, breathing slow. They found us too fast. They have informants everywhere, Kell replied. But now, we have something too. He pointed to the data ship, still clutched in John's good hand. This has names, proof, recordings. Enough to tear the syndicates down if we go public. Rilla stepped forward, eyes fierce. Then let's do it, she said. Let the galaxy see what they did to my people. But Kell shook his head. Once it's out, there's no hiding anymore, he warned. They'll send armies, not just hunters. John looked at Rilla. She doesn't want to hide anymore, he said. Neither do I. Kell sighed, then smiled. Then let's burn them down. That night Rilla didn't sleep. She sat beside John, watching the fire flicker. His head rested against her shoulder, pain pulling at his body. I was made to feel weak, she whispered. Like my life was only pain. John opened his eyes slowly. But today, you weren't weak. He said, you saved me. Rilla touched his hand gently. And you made me believe I'm more than what they told me I was. Outside, the stars moved quietly across the black sky. But inside that bunker, something stronger than weapons had formed. Trust. Love. And something the syndicates feared most, hope. They couldn't run anymore. They couldn't hide. So John did the only thing left that could protect her under Earth's law. He asked her to marry him, not out of love, not at first, but out of necessity. Because only a legal human partner could file for protection under the Interspecies Union Code. And that was the only shield left against the bounty on her head. Rilla sat quietly across the table, her hands folded in her lap. You want to make me your wife? She asked slowly. John rubbed the back of his neck. It's not what you think, he said. This isn't about ownership or control. It's paperwork, legal binding, a way to say she's mine, but in a way that saves you, not traps you. Her eyes studied his face for a long moment. On my world, that word meant forever, she whispered. It still can, John said. His voice softer now. If you want it to. They drove to the last place he thought he'd visit. Again, Station Orlo, an old orbital hub once used for refugee marriages during the war. Now it was a broken, rusty place, with flickering lights and dusty halls. But it still had one working registry terminal. It's the clerk, a half-cybernetic man with bored eyes. Didn't even blink when he saw Rilla. He just tapped keys and printed. A digital contract? You sure about this? He asked John. This kind of marriage can't be reversed without galactic court approval. John nodded. I'm sure then. The man turned to Rilla. And you? You sign this, you become human under Earth law. That means protection, citizenship, and responsibility. Rilla didn't hesitate. She pressed her hand to the scanner. The machine beeped, then hummed softly. A golden light glowed briefly between. Her fingers in the device, binding her name to his, she stepped back, her face unreadable. It's done? It's done, John said, voice steady. The ride back to the bunker was silent for a while, but not uncomfortable. Rilla stared out. The window at the stars, she spoke softly. When I was a child, I dreamed of marrying someone kind. Someone who wouldn't put a collar around my neck. John's grip tightened on the wheel. You'll never wear chains again, he promised. You say that like it means something, she said with a slight smile. But in your world, promise still holds power. He looked at her. In our world now, he corrected gently. They reached home just before sunrise. John opened the bunker door, expecting silence. But the lights flickered on, and the screen on the wall displayed new data. The marriage had already updated across all legal networks. Bounty status, suspended. Status, spouse of Terran citizen, protected John. Exhaled slowly, a weight lifting. From his chest, they can't legally touch you now, he said. Rilla stood beside him. Staring at the screen, she leaned her head gently against his shoulder. I don't know what to feel, she whispered. Feel safe, he said, rapping. An arm around her. Later in the quiet, she stepped out of the washroom in a long robe, her silver skin catching the low light. Her scars were still there, but now they looked like marks of survival, not shame. She walked over to him. Eyes searching his. Why are you still helping? Me? She asked. Even now, when I have nothing left to give? John stood slowly. You've already given me something, Rilla. What? Purpose. He hadn't realized it until he said it. But it was true. For years, he'd drifted just another soldier trying to forget. But with her, he had something worth standing for again. That night, they shared the same bed for the first time. Not in lust, not in obligation, but in trust. She curled against his chest, warm and soft. And for the first time since he left the battlefield, he slept without nightmares. Rilla whispered in the dark. Do all human husbands hold their wives like this? John chuckled softly. Only the lucky ones, she smiled. And for once, it was real. But far away, in a syndicate boardroom, deep in space, a tall, alien figure watched the marriage data flash across a holoscreen. His eyes narrowed. He turned. To his assistant, legal protections mean nothing if they're both dead. He hissed. A new bounty order was issued that same hour, not for capture, but for execution. Targets John Carter and Rilla of Emberlight status, marked for death. The morning light was soft through the bunker window. Rilla stood alone, watching the golden sky shift. Her fingers brushing the glass gently, for the first time in years. She wasn't running. She was married, protected by law, safe in the arms of a man who had never treated her like property, but safety was an illusion. She could feel that something was coming. Behind her, John stirred awake, his shoulder still wrapped from the last attack. He looked at her and smiled. Morning, wife, he said with a playful tone. She smiled faintly, but her eyes didn't leave the horizon. I felt something last night, she said softly. A dream? No, she whispered. A warning later that day. Kel returned, eyes grim, jaw tight. He threw a datapad onto the table. You've both been marked, he said. It's official. High-level contract. No more capture orders, they want you dead. John picked up the pad, scanned the details. The hit was authorized by the highest syndicate council. Price. Unthinkable. Hunters from across the stars would come now, not just soldiers, but monsters, killers who didn't care about politics or bloodlines. What do we do? Rilla asked calmly. Kel looked at John, then back at her. You run, he said. There's a smuggler I trust. He'll get you to a hidden colony. Deep in uncharted space, John didn't answer right away. He looked at Rilla, his fingers curling slowly around hers, but she pulled away gently. "No," she said, "I'm done running." They argued for hours. Kel said the only way to win was to disappear. John said the syndicates would chase them anyway. But Rilla. She stood in silence, thinking. Then she walked to the back room and opened the steel chest. Inside were the documents Kel had smuggled out weeks ago to Dada that proved what the syndicates had done to her people. To her family, to the children. "In the pens, this is what they fear," she said, holding up the chip. "Not me, not John. But the truth." John stepped beside her. "If we release it, it'll double the bounty," he said. "They already want us dead." Rilla replied, "What difference does it make now?" The next morning, they transmitted the files across hundreds of stations, colonies, and interplanetary networks. The truth spread like wildfire. Footage of pens where alien girls were kept in chains, evidence of royal bloodlines executed in silence, secret deals between syndicate leaders and corrupt governors. And at the center of it, one name, Real Hara of Ember Light. She didn't hide anymore. She faced the galaxy, scars and all, and claimed her birthright. Some cheered her, some feared her, but many wept, and in hidden corners of the stars. Survivors whispered her name with hope, but hope comes with a cost. That night, the final attack came. 6 armored ships broke through the sky. Dozens of black armored mercs dropped onto the land around the bunker. Lasers lit the dark, alarms blared. John grabbed his rifle, tossed one to Rilla. "This is it," he said. She nodded, not with fear, but with fire. "I'm ready." They fought side by side. Back to back, John's aim was true. His body bleeding but steady, Rilla moved like lightning. Faster than she ever had, blades flashing, eyes glowing. They held the line longer than anyone should have. Oh, till the last ship fell, burning in the distance. When the smoke cleared, they stood alone, surrounded by silence and the bodies of those who came to erase them. Kel arrived hours later, his ship hovering above the wreckage. He stared in disbelief. "You're alive," he said, voice shaking. "You sound surprised," John muttered. With a tired grin. "You shouldn't be," Rilla said softly, holding John's hand. The galaxy changed that day. Governments demanded answers. The syndicates lost power. And for the first time in centuries, interspecies marriages became a protected right. But none of that mattered to John and Rilla as much as what came next. They rebuilt, not in hiding, but in light. People came from all worlds, seeking healing, safety, and truth, and at the center of it all stood a human soldier and the alien woman who once ate from the floor. She stood tall beside him, no longer a number, no longer a slave, but a wife, a leader, and a symbol of freedom. One night, as stars blinked gently overhead, Rilla leaned on John's shoulder. "Do you regret it?" she asked. He smiled. "Not for a second. I was given to you in chains," she whispered. "And I unchained your heart," he whispered back. Then she smiled genuinely, peacefully, for the first time since she arrived in his life. And this time, there were no hunters, no fear, no pain, only love and the quiet breath of freedom that stretched across the stars.